And obviously, just remember, like I'm looking at you now,
Yes.
and I'm right in front of the mic. I think maybe one day you might grasp this.
Every time I look at my mic, it looks in exactly the same position as yours relative to you.
Maybe that's why I get more of a line on there, you see.
What do you mean, more of a line on there?
Well, I'm talking now and it's going like a polygraph test. It's
yeah, but
going
I'm
up and down.
talking right into it. Look,
Right.
I can't get my mouth anymore on it.
Not the first time you said that. Ladies and gents, we're just bickering over the microphones.
Over the microphones.
The setup of the microphones. We might as well just start.
Just start. Let's just start. Start doesn't mean to go on.
Absolutely.
But first, happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday, dear problematic gays. That's us.
That's us. Happy birthday to us. It's our first birthday.
Hooray!
This is transmitting on the 3rd of June, and the 3rd of June last year, we pressed go.
Pressed go.
Didn't we?
We did.
We went live.
We do it live.
Yeah. And what year it's been.
What a year it's been.
Now, I would say we would pop the corks of the champagne bottles at this point, but it is 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, it is.
And by the way, I should just mention, if you hear any random snorts during this episode, now we're not celebrating too hard that we've got the cocaine in abundance on a silver tray.
No.
It's actually my two doggies recording downstairs in PG Manor today, aren't we?
Downstairs in PG Manor, which means we are with the dogs. And I'm not concerned about snuffling and snoring. I'm more concerned about the silent farts, which one of them has already done in my vicinity this morning. So if you hear me suddenly gipping up, that's the reason why.
Yes, Frank's bottom is precariously placed quite close to you.
Really, and if you're a regular listener, you will know Frank gave me a fart blowback a couple of episodes ago, so I'm a little bit wary.
Yes.
And I am in the actual trajectory again.
Yeah. Now, I did attempt to take them out for a walk to tie them out, but we're recording this, we're banking episodes, aren't we, as we say in the biz.
As I say in the bit.
So we've actually recorded this during a heat wave.
Yes, it's bloody boiling.
So I did attempt to take my two little doggies out for a little walk, got halfway up the country lane.
And then came back.
And then came back because the snuffling and the snorting and the heavy breathing had already started, and I thought, who are we doing this for? So it is our birthday, which we're really pleased about. Cast your mind back to about 18 months ago when we first decided to do a podcast. Shall we tell the gazers how it went?
I can't really remember because we were in the garden drunk.
Yeah.
Wasn't it something along the lines of, I think we could do a podcast?
I'll do it with you.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Cut to the present day, Radio Times reviewed.
Radio Times reviewed.
Amongst several other reviews on the internet.
On the internet. On that internet.
On the internet thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Professional setup.
Uh-huh.
Well, that doesn't sound very enthusiastic. I'll do that again. Okay.
I can't even clear my throat. Actually, this is 1 year. What's going to be
Professional
like
setup.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Professional.
Thank you.
Professional. But we're also here to celebrate another thing, aren't we?
We are.
Because we're celebrating Pride Month.
Yes.
With a special selection we've curated for you, which represents all aspects of the queer community, I think.
We've tried to pick TV shows, films that encapsulates the whole of the LGBTQ plus umbrella. So we run right across the spectrum and then all the way back again.
Yes. We won't spoil what's coming up, but what are we going to be looking at today, Dave?
Today, we're going to be looking at a documentary series, magazine show called Gay Life, and it's from 1980 in the UK.
Yeah.
So this was quite a pioneering TV show that tried to represent different aspects of gay life at the turn of the 80s.
Yeah.
So we watched episode 2. We'll post a link to it. Some really, really interesting snippets from 1980. Quite a lot to talk about.
A lot to talk about. Yeah, I was very excited watching this.
Yeah.
It's only 24 minutes long, and it's a super interesting snapshot, not only of gay life, but also 1980 Britain.
Yes.
The 1980 club scene.
Attitudes towards homosexuality.
Yes.
And the emerging subcultures.
Yes, absolutely. It's a nice tie-in piece with our episode on cruising.
Yes.
Which we heartily recommend if you're up for a bit of fisting on a Sunday morning.
And also I felt quite a handy tie-in to our Terminator episode, quite randomly, with our musings on masculinity in the 80s.
Yes. Yeah. And as a historian watching this, I was very excited, which I shall go into.
I felt when I was watching it, I thought Lee would be flicking himself off at this.
Indeed, I was.
Dr. Lee Arnott, social historian.
Yes.
So,
without further ado, should we kick off Pride Month by heading over to the news desk? So these are some of the events of 1980, which happened in the UK. On the 28th of January, Granada Television airs a controversial edition of World in Action on ITV, in which it alleges that Manchester United Football Club chairman Louis Edwards has made unauthorised payments to the parents of some of the club's younger players and has made shady deals to win local council meat contracts for his retail outlet chain. I thought this was interesting because it shows how small scale football still is at this point. You got the chairman of Manchester United doing dodgy dealings for meat contracts. You know, it's not like we haven't got to Arab sheiks and Russian oligarchs yet. It's really, after this, a month later, he'll die from a heart attack.
Oh.
Yeah.
The stress.
You've got World in Action knocking at your door.
Yeah, public exposure.
Yeah, really.
Blimey.
And as we've talked about, this is the days when public exposure could be proper ruinous because people weren't really exposed.
No.
Culturally.
No, this was the days before being cancelled.
Absolutely.
Because you could just literally get away with anything.
Yeah. And then, there's no social media to post on.
No CCTV.
No, it's only newspapers and radio, which exposes people. And TV, obviously.
Simpler days. Where you could procure meat contracts.
Yeah, nobody would say anything. Oh, it's all gone woke. Speaking of woke, can we just do a side swerve? We've got a new pope. Have you seen certain members of the world going into meltdown because they're saying the pope is woke? Which I find hilarious. Like, have you not seen the job description? Yeah. Anyway, it made me chuckle. I like watching people who think woke is bad going into meltdown.
Yeah. Okay, so also in 1980, on the 14th to the 23rd of February, Great Britain and Northern Ireland compete at the Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York, in the United States, and win 1 gold medal, Robin Cousins, for figure skating.
Robin Cousins was a name, wasn't he?
Yes.
He's one of the gays, wasn't he?
Was he Robin Cousins?
Yeah.
We're not going to publicly out people. That's not.
Well,
that's not Pride Month friendly.
It is Pride Month. Let's just get the fact checkers.
Okay, fact checking department on the 63rd floor. Can you just double check if Robin Cousins was in fact one of us?
Well, there's no mention of a wife or anything.
Like Sissy and Ada sat here.
Robin Cousins on skating and his double life as a gay Olympian. Oh, he married his male partner in 2007.
Yes. I can imagine you were glued to the TV for figure skating at this point, were you?
I was, obviously. So I was glued to Robin Cousins. Strangely very attracted to the world of ice skating.
The signs were there from a very early age.
Signs were there.
Okay, what's next, Lee?
30th of April, the Iranian embassy siege begins. A 6-man terrorist team from the Democratic Revolutionary Front for the Liberation of Arabistan, couldn't say that after a couple of tequilas, could you? Captures the embassy of Iran in Prince's Gate Knightsbridge, taking 26 hostages. On the 5th of May, the SAS stormed the Iranian embassy building, killing 5 out of the 6 terrorists. And the events are broadcast live on television. Do you remember watching that?
Yeah. I do, very vividly, actually. Yes, all those burly soldiers waiting outside on the balcony, wasn't it?
Posh building in London.
Yeah. Didn't quite know what was going on.
No. And there's that moment when the big explosion comes out, isn't there? Yeah. Of course, this is the start of the time when the SAS becomes lauded in the press. And in the Falklands conflict 2 years later, they really get high profile.
Right.
It's really dull, but that's what happens with the SAS. They become like a panacea for all this kind of forms of masculinity and manhood and stuff. And then have a whole rut of memoirs published in the 90s. It becomes a real thing.
On the 30th of June, the pre-decimal sixpence coin is withdrawn from circulation.
I remember the sixpence coin.
I don't. Wow.
I do. It was quite a big one. Bigger than a 10p, if I'm remembering the right one. And it had a picture of the old king on the back of it. And they were still knocking about when I was a kid. Were they interchangeable with a 10p? I can't remember. Perhaps our gazers will remember. On the 16th of August, 37 people die as a result of the Denmark Place fire, which was an arson attack at adjacent nightclubs in London, killing 37 people of 8 different nationalities. Most of the victims are Spanish or Latin American and were patrons of 2 unlicensed bars in the building.
Gosh,
pretty horrible, isn't
arson. Okay, on the 21st of September, the first CND rally at RAF Greenham Common takes place.
Yes.
So this was the start of the protest then, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's Francis Pym, who's Thatcher's Defence Secretary, who does the deal that allows American troops and missiles to be put at Greenham Common, basically turning the airbase into American territory. And of course, it's nuclear weapons in Britain, and which aren't ours, which make us a target. CND, which has been going around since the 60s, since the 50s or 60s, I can't remember, and was always a kind of middle-class grassroots campaigning thing that got more media attention than actually take up by the rest of the people, but really comes into its stride at this point. Then you get all the women protests as well. So on the 3rd of October, the 1980 Housing Act comes into effect, which gives council house tenants of at least 3 years standing in England and Wales the right to buy their homes, which of course is the start of the whole kind of housing crisis we have today, because Thatcher's legacy.
Let's not talk about Margaret Thatcher during Pride Month.
No, let's not actually.
Okay, on the 14th of December, thousands of music fans hold a 10-minute vigil in Liverpool for John Lennon. This year, he went, didn't he?
Yeah, not long before this. He's just been shot in New York. Yeah, we talked about this in our cruising episode. My dad was a big John Lennon fan. The shock when he was assassinated by his number one fan. You're looking forward to the day we have a number one fan.
Well, not if they're going to shoot us.
Good point. Well made. On the 26th and 28th of December, sightings of unexplained lights at RAF Woodbridge in Suffolk becomes known as the Rendlesham Forest Incident and is the most well-known claimed UFO event in Britain. What do you think about that?
I think it was probably an aeroplane.
Well, it's all these RAF-based personnel who spotted it, and for 2 nights they're on high alert because they don't know what it is.
Oh, okay. Probably a Russian drone or something.
In 1980?
Before drones existed. Secret Russian project.
And the local police were involved. Those people. It was quite a cause at the time, cause célèbre at the time.
Right.
And has since still been unable to be explained.
But why would, if UFOs were going to hover over anywhere, bit of a coincidence that they flew over an Air Force base?
Well, then they would argue that they could see the technology, so they were studying it, if you believe in that kind of thing.
Dog next door doesn't agree.
Dog next door.
Don't you kick off, Eddie.
High alert.
Dog's kicking off.
Hackles up.
Yes.
And the other one's just splattered in the sun. Fine. Back in business.
Back in business. Shall we have a look at the TV landscape that our episode of Gay Life fell into?
Yes, we should indeed. Now, I haven't got any charts, but I've got some debuts for us and also some TV events of the year. So we've got a couple of debuts. On the 1st of January, are you ready for this? Yeah. I need you to be ready.
Yeah.
On the 1st of January, the sitcom Heidi Hi.
Hody ho.
Thank you. Set in a holiday camp in 1959 and 60, makes its debut on BBC One. Were you a fan of Heidi Hi?
If it was on, I would watch it. I mean, the only reason to watch it was for Sue Pollard.
Obviously, yeah.
As Peggy. I want to be a yellow coat.
Yeah.
And Gladys Pugh.
Of course. The legend that is Ruth Maddock. Absolutely. I really enjoyed Heidi Hi. I loved it.
Also, I really liked the older couple who were the ballroom dancers.
Yes. Yeah.
Remember, he was quite clearly...
Yes.
Well...
Flamboyant.
Yes. But she was great in her chiffon gowns, wasn't
so
she?
snobby, wasn't she? Yeah, they clearly hated. And it's like the Punch and Judy man as well. Hated it, the drinker. Yeah. You know, I thought it was great.
You know, there was obviously kind of like a reminiscence of the 50s in the 80s.
Yeah, but still in the 80s. Only 2 years since Grease and the 50s revival's really kicking in. So, you know, this is still very much within the memory of people. And holiday camps are still a thing in Britain at this time.
Yeah.
I went to Butlins and I must have been 5 or 6 at around this time.
Yeah.
It was a shithole. It was filled with ants. I think we went to the one in Scotland. That was hideous.
Yeah.
Vague memories of just ants everywhere. Couldn't stay there.
Did you have to leave?
Had to leave.
Oh.
Yeah.
But also in 1980, another debut was Family Fortunes, presented by Bob Monkhouse.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Babbage.
Yes.
I used to like a bit of Family Fortune Sunday afternoon. I think it was Sunday early evening. Used to like it.
Yeah.
Felt like good swag on Family Fortunes.
You could.
Yeah.
You could get some really good stuff.
Yeah. But then we used to think there was good swag on Bullseye, so
that
was our frame of reference.
And the final round was always a bit of a nail biter, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
You had to answer 5 questions.
Oh, and the clock went down.
Yes.
And the other one had to not answer the same question, didn't he?
Yeah.
If you answered the same question.
Yeah. Was in the booth with the headphones
That's
on, which
right.
was quite a stereotypical
Very Mr. and Mrs.
trope.
Yeah. On the 21st of January, the final episode of Jamie and the Magic Torch airs on ITV. Do you remember that?
I do.
Do you?
I do.
I loved that show.
I wanted to be Jamie and the Magic Torch.
Yeah, and he had that cute dog as well, didn't he?
Yes.
He used to go down the
Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
Someone
Jamie!
Clearly tripping when they were writing that. On the 26th of January, ITV show the feature-length pilot episode of Heart to Heart, starring Robert Wagner and Stephanie Powers. Glam personified.
Glamour, honestly. My name's Max.
Yeah.
She's quite a lady.
Yeah.
When they met, it was murder. Fucking great, isn't it?
Yeah, and Robert Wagner was quite suave.
Yes.
But she was just so glam, wasn't she?
Yeah.
With her kind of like, flicked hair and
yes.
everything.
Oh, I mean, Stephanie Powers, every time you see her in something, you just can't help fall in love with her a bit. Although she was quite distant on set, I've heard from somebody who worked with her on Deceptions. Do you remember Deceptions?
No.
She played these twin sisters. One was a dowdy housewife and one was this rich kind of Fontaine Carlo character, and they swapped lives.
Oh.
But the dowdy one, masquerading as the posh one, was on a yacht in Venice that got blown up and got killed, leaving the glamorous one to have to live the dowdy life.
Oh.
Yeah, it was fucking great.
Well, she probably had a lot going on playing a dual role.
Well, she probably did, yes.
Just wanted to be kept to herself, just to get her head space right.
Yeah.
On the 12th of March, the very first InVision CFAX transmissions is broadcast on BBC One between 8:30am and 9am. So half an hour of CFAX.
Half an hour of CFAX.
Yeah, do you remember CFAX, teletext, all that kind of stuff?
I used to read it all the time.
Yeah.
I'd read, and I remember every getting the holidays off CFAX.
Yeah.
I'd read like the music reviews.
Yes. If you wanted to read your horoscope, you had to wait about 5 minutes till it came round again.
Yeah. Isn't it funny that you'd wait, you were prepared to wait for like 30 seconds for a screen to change.
Yeah.
To then have 10 lines of text and then wait another 30 seconds for it to happen again. It's astonishing, isn't it?
We wouldn't do that now.
Oh my God, we wouldn't have the...
You've got literally got 2 seconds to catch someone's interest before they scroll forward again. Simpler times, darling.
Simpler times with the racism, homophobia and sexism. Simple times. On the 26th of May, BBC One airs the 3rd season finale of the US drama series Dallas. 2 months after its US airing, in which J.R. Ewing is shot by an unknown assailant in his office. This leads to the whole Who Shot J.R. phenomenon, which was huge this year. You could buy Who Shot J.R. t-shirts, mugs. Who Shot J.R. was everywhere, wasn't it?
I remember the footage of the tapes coming in through Heathrow under heavy security and everything. The papers desperately trying to get an advance on who did it. But I think they managed to keep it secret till it was transmitted, didn't they?
Yes, they did. We won't spoil it for people because who want to watch it. Kristen Crosby. Oh, shit, we've done it. Oh, no.
Sorry, gazers.
So you've just been spoiled for a 35-year-old TV programme.
Ewing Oil, J.R. Ewing, Miss Ellie. Yeah. When Jock had a heart attack and died.
I wasn't a big Dallas fan. Yeah, Dallas didn't grab me in the way that Dynasty did. Yeah, for some reason. But my Auntie Margaret was obsessed and had the whole range of Who Shot JR merchandise.
Really?
Yeah, and was beside herself waiting for November. What a seminal moment for soap operas.
On the 13th of September, ITV begins showing Hammer House of Horror, the supernatural anthology series produced by Hammer Films. I remember these.
I do. I love them. I've got the Blu-rays, obviously. I think they're fucking great. There's some really good 50-minute, quite chilling, actually. Some of them are still really creepy. Some of them not so much.
Yeah.
But all-star cast, as you can imagine.
I remember about a house dripping blood.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that one of them?
Yeah, that's one of them.
It's the one with Brian Cox.
Yes.
With the animals.
Yeah. Peter Cushing has him trapped in this kind of electronic... They're all on YouTube, actually, and they're worth a little punt. The Brian Cox one is very good. The House That Dripped Blood is really good fun. The denouement sees this children's party scene with blood suddenly coming out all the pipe and stuff. And they didn't tell any of the kids that's what they were going to do. The kids' hysteria you see is absolutely 100% legit. To terrify the kids for entertainment.
Another thing that's come on leaps and bounds since the 80s. For various reasons, is the safeguarding of children on television and film sets.
Yes.
On the 13th of November, the Broadcasting Act of 1980 paves the way for a 4th UK television service, leading to the creation of Channel 4 and S4C in Wales, beginning transmission in 1982.
So you're getting a 4th TV channel.
Wow.
It's going to be amazing. I know. I wonder what kind of things they're going to show on it.
Yeah.
Well, conversations typically had up and down the nation when this news broke.
Our younger gays is going to be like...
You had how many?
So you had 3, and then you went to 4.
Yeah, and you couldn't even turn the channel over without getting up and touching the television to do so.
No. Or if you had a long bamboo cane.
Yes, or a child.
Yes.
Yeah.
We could just throw it at the telly and hope it hits the button you want.
The 25th, Christmas Day. Well, Christmas Day and Boxing Day, there's 2 big movie premieres. Right. Christmas Day, we get The Man with the Golden Gun, the Roger Moore Bond film from 1974 on ITV. And then...
on Boxing Day, on BBC One, The Towering Inferno, starring Paul Newman and Steve McQueen. I think this might be the first time I watched it.
I think that might be mine as well.
Yeah.
Loved it. Scared the shit out of me. But yeah, isn't it funny? 1974 was Man with the Golden Gun. 1975 was The Towering Inferno. So it takes 5 or 6 years for a premiere, which is why they were such big things, weren't they? Yes. Movies on TV, again, 3 channels. So if you've not seen something at the cinema, there's no video, there's no way to watch it until it's on telly. So that's why you're getting 20-odd million viewers watching these films that no one's ever seen since they've been in the cinema. No. I mean, imagine something was released in 2020 and you couldn't watch it until this year. Yeah. That's what it was like, kids. Simpler times.
Back in the olden days.
Back in the olden days with steam piston telly.
Why do we automatically go Northern and Yorkshire when we're trying to sound thick?
I think that bloody Hovis advert laid a blueprint, like a chick and a mother hen, you know. When I were a lad going uphill with a loaf of bread. You know, that's what was on telly when we were kids, so I think we just get that voice from there.
Yeah, I'm trying not to take it personally.
That's how you speak all the time.
So why don't we have a look at the official singles charts from the 10th of February 1980?
Let's do it.
Top 20, I think.
Top 20. This is the 10th of February?
Yes.
Yes, let's have a look.
Do we think we're going to know stuff?
I think we might actually know a few things.
This is stuff playing on the radio.
Yeah. Number 20, Baby I Love You by the Ramones.
Nice song.
Nice song. Number 19, one of my all-time favourites, Brass in Pocket by the Pretenders. I love the Pretenders.
She was fabulous, wasn't she?
Pretty
As
high.
well, continues to be fabulous.
Yes, absolute legend. And Brass in Pocket, I remember seeing it on Top of the Pops, and my dad had a bit of a thing for her, obviously. I couldn't quite understand the lyrics. Gonna use my legs, gonna use my arms. But then, you know, in 1985, I did think Material Girl by Madonna was a song about a girl made of felt. So, and I was 12 by that point. So... I was often naive in lots of ways, Dave.
In your own little world, weren't you?
Little world, love.
Yes, little gay northern boy.
Yes, and me Doctor Who and catalogues and...
Yes, that sounds very much a mirror image of my childhood as well.
Right. Did you know what Material Girl was about, though, when it came out?
Considering I'm such a huge Madonna fan, Madonna kind of passed me by until about 1988, which was a kind of a fallow year for her musically, but I had a whole year to catch up. Before Like a Prayer came out in 1989.
So you knew Material Girl was about capitalism and consumerism and stuff.
Yes.
And, you know,
And it was very ironic, and she wasn't a Material Girl,
She wasn't made of velvet or felt.
No.
And also, I thought in La Isla Bonita, I thought she sang, he had eyes like potatoes instead of eyes like pesetas. That's enough Madonna misheard lyrics or misunderstood lyrics.
Eyes like the desert.
Is that what the lyrics?
Yes. Sorry to be pedantic and correct you.
It's not pesetas then?
With eyes like pesetas?
Yeah. Oh my God. I've been getting it wrong still. I thought because it's Spanish, pesetas were the money in Spain. Well, as a child, I thought she was singing with eyes like potatoes, which I wasn't sure if she meant either the eyes you get in potatoes or literally she was holding 2 potatoes in her eyes. So when I realised I got it wrong, I thought naturally it was eyes like pesetas. But you're telling me it's eyes like the desert?
Yes.
You're joking.
It is.
Are you being serious?
Yeah. Are you still with us, gazers?
Are you gaslighting me?
I'm not gaslighting you. Or am I?
All right, Christina Crawford. Everything I know has been a lie. I feel like I'm in Inception.
Well, maybe you are. Maybe this isn't happening. Maybe we're not recording a podcast. To a lot of people listening.
We're really not.
We're really not.
Right, crashing on, please.
Yes, let's
crashing
do it.
on. I feel like I've learnt something there, though. Sorry, everybody else, but I really have.
I think there'll be quite a few gazers out there thinking,
you're joking.
It was the desert.
I thought it was potatoes. If any gazers out there did think it was potatoes like I did, then do get in touch. Anyway.
Number 18, So good to be back home again, the tourists.
Don't know that one, but obviously the tourists, Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart in a group. Yeah, and they had a hit with Dusty's I Only Want to Be With You.
Okay.
So I remember of them. I Can't Stand Up for Falling Down. Regular thing you say every Friday night, isn't it? Elvis Costello.
Mm-hmm. Number 16, 3 Minute Hero, Selector.
Like a bit of Selector, don't know that song. 17 by Regents at number 15. Nope.
Gloss over that one.
Next.
Number 14, Living by Numbers, New Music.
Music with a K. That's always a sign of class.
Or lack of original idea.
Now, number 13, Cliff Richard with Carrie, which I don't think is the soundtrack song from the Brian De Palma Stephen King adaptation with Sissy Spacek and a bucket of cow blood.
I wouldn't imagine he'd go anywhere near that.
No, of course he wouldn't. No.
Number 12, Rock With You, Michael Jackson.
Okay, we've got a classic there.
Yes.
Stone Cold. Save Me by Queen at number 11.
My Girl by Madness at number 10.
I remember all the boys dancing like madness at school discos, or trying to. It was a real boys thing, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Number 9 is Babe by Styx.
No, move on.
Tumbleweed.
Number 8, I Hear You Now, John and Vangelis. Was Vangelis the one who did Chariots of Fire?
I think it was, yeah.
We've already talked about that.
Yeah. It's different for girls, says Joe Jackson at number 7. Damn right, Joe.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, 1980, you got men touching you up all the time when you don't feel like it. You get paid less, you have to do all the shit around the house.
Yeah.
Definitely different for girls. Number 6, And the Beat Goes On, The Whispers. That's a good song.
Yes. Was that Sonny and Cher originally?
Couldn't tell you.
I think it was.
Was it?
Yeah, I'll fact check that.
No, you're thinking of And the Beat Goes On, which is Sonny and Cher. This is And the Beat Goes On.
Oh.
Very different. Very different.
Apart from the title.
Apart from the exact same title.
Number 5, Captain Beaky / Wilfred the Weasel by Captain Beaky.
Yeah. That was Jeremy Lloyd, co-creator of Are You Being Served and all those sitcoms. I think he rated a character. I don't know if it was on Jack and Nori, but he got a single out of it anyway. Someone's Looking at You, the Boomtown Rats. We've talked about the Boomtown Rats before, haven't we?
My disdain for them.
Yeah.
Just have a bath.
Have a bath.
Number 3, I'm in the Mood for Dancing, the Nolans. Oh.
Do you know, there's our podcast in a nutshell. Our criticism of the Boomtown Rats is, have a bath. Scruffy. Oh, it's the Nolans. And if you think we're two gays.
I know. Well, we are celebrating Pride Month.
That's exactly it.
Where every single queer person in the country is going to be in the mood for dancing.
Exactly.
I remember I had a Saturday job in Scarborough in the early 90s. And it was at a place called The Cheapest Shop in Town.
Really? What did it sell?
The cheapest of cheap tat.
Really? Was it like a pound shop?
It was like a pound shop, but kind of like, seaside little shop.
So bucket and spade.
Bucket and spade and all that kind of thing. I was in charge of the downstairs tape section.
Tapes?
Yeah,
right.
Tapes. And every morning I had to vacuum. I used to put I'm in the Mood for Dancing on every time I vacuumed.
That was your motivational song?
Yes.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's a great song to get motivated to.
It really is.
Yeah. I mean, you weren't going to get motivated to the Boomtown Rats, were you?
I think I probably got paid about £1.50 an hour.
Probably. And thought you were rich beyond your wildest dreams.
Exactly. I used to save up for an album.
Yes.
Every week.
Yeah. At number 2, Too Much Too Young, the Specials.
Scar is really...
right, in its imperial phase at this point.
Yes,
yeah.
it really is.
Yeah. Do we see what number 1 is?
Yes, let's do it. Please don't disappoint. Oh. Number 1, Coward of the County, Kenny Rogers. All right.
It is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bit disappointing.
Bit disappointing in that. If I'm in the mood for dancing...
I'd be number 1.
We probably would have wet ourselves.
Oh, we'd have had to get off the couch. So, would you like to tell us a bit about gay life, Dave? I mean, not your gay life. I mean, the TV show. Thanks.
Fine. I thought it was like a little therapy session.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the couch.
Yeah, just stop reclining and sit back up, please.
Yeah. Okay, Gay Life is a documentary television programme broadcast by London Weekend Television. In 1980, it was produced by Michael Atwell at LWT's London Minorities Unit and was the United Kingdom's first LGBTQ plus television series. Michael Atwell said the programme could claim to be the first time in the world that a major national TV company has given a whole series to gays. 3 members of the Gay Life production team were gay, including Atwell, who said that the staff felt that they were, in a sense, trying to ride 2 horses, putting forward the gay viewpoint and relating to non-gay people. This was encapsulated for the production team by the slogan, "For and About Gays." Gay Life was first broadcast in the London region on the 10th of February 1980 at 11:30 p.m.
Tucked away. That's probably the last TV show before close down.
Yes.
Because TV channels used to close down at midnight with the national anthem.
Yes.
And the TV would just go,
yeah,
screen would go dead.
So for all it claimed to be about presenting Gay Life to a straight audience, as well as a minority gay audience.
Yes.
Tucked away in the closet, so to speak, but also, a pioneering show.
Absolutely. Yeah. Where it was scheduled was not their fault, and where it was scheduled is indicative of how the programme was probably viewed by the wider echelons of ITV. So,
So, shall I take us through each item that we can kind of discuss in general? So, let's talk about the opening montage first of all.
I was living for that opening montage. It's just amazing, isn't it? The different representations. It's just black and white photos of various aspects of LGBTQ life of 1980. Oh, it just filled me with such kind of nostalgia and warmth, gave me the kind of fuzzies. What about you?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it was, like you say, it was representations of all kind of gay life, wasn't it? What I found a lot of the time, apart from the drag queens, how it looked quite homogenised. We go to various nightclubs and things, gay nightclubs, and people are dressed quite conservatively, I would say, until we take a deep dive into the subcultures. Part of that felt to me as though if you were gay at that point, you wouldn't want to advertise the fact that you were gay.
Yeah.
Outside on the streets.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we'll discuss, for most people, gay is still conflated with femininity.
Yes.
And as we've discussed before, on TV, all you've got is Dick Emery, Larry Grayson, Mr. Humphreys. So,
and kind of have to remember that today we've got Pride months, we'll have Pride marches all across the UK and the world, obviously. And it's okay to be gay, to put it in kind of very general terms.
Yes.
But back then, you would do everything you could to hide the fact that you were gay.
Absolutely.
When you're outside in everyday life.
Yeah, and there are very few institutions or where it's permissible to be gay. Like we were reading a book about a BBC producer, and the BBC in the 70s and 80s was one of the few institutions that preferred you to be out and gay, so you're not liable to be blackmailed or to be, have your secrecy used against you in some way. So,
and then we get the logo, which is in juxtaposition to the very stark black and white photographs, which is very flamboyant. Gay Life in that giant pink cartoony kind of titles, etc., which I thought was great.
Yes, nice absolutely.
Touch. Here we are. We're unflinching. We're proud.
Yeah.
So this is quite London-centric.
Yes.
Well,
it's London Weekend Television, isn't it? So,
We go to Heaven nightclub, first of all, which has just opened.
Yes. Yeah.
And we have shots inside the nightclub of the DJs, the dancers.
Yeah.
And then we open with a narration. Before we go to talk about Heaven itself, I thought the narration, the commentary, it seemed to be more fly on the wall.
Yes.
It seemed to be more talking to straight people. This is what gay people do. This is gay life presented to a straight audience.
Yes.
It felt to me.
Yeah. But then you could also argue, because there's so little representation of gay people and their cultures, there's also speaking to gay people who've maybe never been to a club, Yeah. Doesn't Heaven look great? I mean...
It looks fantastic.
And did you spot Ian Levine on the decks?
Yes.
Ian Levine, record producer. Google Ian Levine if you want to know more about him. But the sound system was terrible. It was like they were in a church. But isn't it interesting comparing Heaven, which is only 2 years after The Stud, and looking at the nightclub in Tramp? And even for everybody talks about Studio 54, if you actually look at footage of it or photos of it closely, it does look a bit, you're just in a big old room with a couple of speakers and some tinsel and lights, aren't you? It's the ambience and the vibe. But I guess Heaven looks like the first kind of club that we'd recognisably recognise as a nightclub at this point. All men.
Yes.
I didn't see any women in there. The 3 go-go dancers. Yeah. I mean, it's like me and you and your husband on a Friday night in the kitchen, isn't it? They were so cute, but they were dreadful. But what I loved is it's like watching Top of the Pops from this year. The bodies are natural, people are just, there's no kind of plastic surgery or teeth. It's just normal looking people. It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
And what I really enjoyed watching it was just to have this space where people were open and free to be themselves. I mean, back in 1980, the outside world must have been so stifling.
Yeah.
We talked before about when you're in the closet or when you try to be straight presenting and it's all an act.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Straight acting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I mean, not that I'm saying they were kind of, being overly flamboyant, but you could tell that they were just being themselves.
Yeah,
having
they
a
didn't
dance,
have to think about it.
Having a drink and having a dance and chatting to people where your mask could come off.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And also, if anybody's out there under the impression that the old lie that, all gay men can dance well, I urge you to watch this. Because it's a lie. But again, people are only finding out how to dance properly after Saturday Night Fever. So
and again, most people were dressed quite conservatively, I would say.
Yeah.
We saw people in the lobby paying to get in. And it felt quite sparse. It felt, normally, nightclubs you're going now and it's absolutely rammed to the gunnels, isn't it?
Yeah.
It felt like a really kind of open, relaxed environment and space. And there was banter between the person behind the till and the people coming in.
Yeah.
And it all just looked quite glam. It looked quite, it just looked quite relaxed.
It wasn't some seedy door you'd have to go down an alleyway to get into. It was like, very open and here's what we're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is where we first encounter one of the talking heads of the piece. A guy called George Melly is in the club and he's interviewed, isn't he? Now, who is George Melly and what was he famous for?
He was like a jazz and blues singer, but he was also like a raconteur. He was a critic, a writer, a lecturer. He used to be a film TV critic for The Observer. He was often on TV chat shows, holding court, that kind of a figure.
And the narrator describes him. Now, what do you think about this? I thought it was quite amusing. It says, George Melly, who was himself gay until he was 30.
Yeah. George, you're in heaven, love. Come on. You're not fooling anybody.
Yeah. I did wonder why the narration chose to talk about him that way. He's obviously told them that that's how he wants to be described.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, sexuality is fluid. We know that these days, and you're allowed to describe yourself how you want to describe yourself. But I did think it just kind of stuck out to me. It jarred a little bit about how he described himself or how they described him as was gay himself until he was 30.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's probably gone from him, but it just speaks to the pressure that men were under, And even though he knows this is probably going to go out late night on TV, there's still the threat that it could adversely affect his career.
Yeah.
But it was odd, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was an odd statement.
It did stick out.
Yeah. The narration talks about the disparity between gay spaces and lesbian spaces and how there are a lot more male spaces than female spaces. It's just two reasons for this disparity. One, that possibly women preferred meeting in a different kind of place, and also that they probably earn less, so can't afford it, which again speaks about 1980 and where the equality between women and men are in terms of their money.
That's just said very matter of fact.
It's just very matter of fact. This is how it is, everybody. Yeah.
So then we leave heaven and we go south of the river to the Royal Vauxhall Tavern.
Yes, we do.
Which obviously is still today.
Our image for our promotional materials was taken in the Royal Vauxhall Tavern, wasn't it?
It was, yes. So it's still frequented.
Under threat, apparently.
Yeah, it's still under threat. I mean, it's been under threat for years for various reasons, hasn't it? But it's still going strong. It's still a bastion of queerness and a celebratory space for a lot of people. And it's a drag club at this point, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Amongst other things.
Yeah.
A very mixed pub.
Yes.
Makes the point of saying that it's a mixed pub. Very relaxed environment, where gay people and straight people can mix together, socialise. It felt to me as though the documentary was trying to say to us that here in South London, there isn't an issue with gay people. Mm. So there's a drag act going on, isn't there, at the Royal Vauxhall Tavern?
Yes, there is, yeah. And it's very, what we'd say was old school drag. A kind of drag that, if you've only ever seen RuPaul's Drag Race, will look really old fashioned and very much a product of that music hall era, and was actually the only drag that we were exposed to when we started going on the London gay scene in the 90s, because that's all you saw. She's singing war songs. That amazed me, that in 1980, songs from the Second World War still had absolute currency as entertainment. But I guess, why wouldn't they? But then the programme does really interestingly go into the kind of long working class history of drag, which I thought was super fascinating. There were some great clips of how drag became respectable in the 1920s and became something that there's a video of a group of policemen from 1931 in drag. Yes, Salford doing drag. And it got me thinking about how drag, you know, touching on my PhD, how drag was a huge part of military life and especially army life. There's footage of like troops going across to the Falklands, having drag shows on with like big ridiculous boobs and bras on, you know, all these butch men. So I thought it was super interesting seeing the working class and straight connection to drag, which was kind of a thing still then in 1980.
What really interested me is what they were saying about it was a big thing during the war to entertain the troops, but then it spilled over into peacetime, into the music halls and the theatres into the 1950s. But then as television came in, stole a lot of the theatrical audience. A lot of the theatres closed down, review acts, music hall acts kind of died out to a certain extent. And then the drag acts transferred over to the clubs and the pubs. There's a big, long history of drag explored here. And, you know, you can whiplash right into the present day with RuPaul's Drag Race and stuff. You know, there's some criticism levelled at drag, isn't there? Going mainstream. But back in the 1950s, 40s, it was mainstream back then. It's nothing new.
No, not at all. Go back to the 17th and 18th century and there were drag shows in the Molly houses, you know, it's always been a thing, you know. Go back to the Roman Empire, you know, it's always been a thing.
But it's fun, it's just celebratory, it celebrates life. I think that's what drag does.
And also pushes back against it and, you know, is subversive, I think. And it's just been hijacked recently, hasn't it? You know, by certain sections of the far right, etc. You know, as you say, as something dirty or evil or corrupting children. It's absolute nonsense. If you go and see a pantomime, you've seen drag. You know, and in panto, the drag, the dame is often the only character who's allowed to be sexual, who's allowed to use innuendo. You know, so bugger off with your sexualising kids. One thing that struck me was that end of music hall, which touched on in this, and there's a play by Don Osmond called The Entertainer in 1958, I think it was. And it's all about the end of music hall and what happens to those acts. And it's a really interesting, because music hall was the main form of entertainment, especially for the working classes. But of course, telly's taken it over. So they do mention Danny LaRue, don't they? Who was one of the few drag queens to go on to TV fame. Obviously, years before Lily Savage. And
who plied her trade in the Royal Vauxhall Tavern famously, didn't she? Amongst other venues as well.
Yes, definitely. Black Cap. Black Cap. And we meet 3 drag queens, don't we? And one is Mrs. Shufflewick. I used to go to the Black Cap in Camden when I first moved to London. We used to go there every week, me and your husband especially, and upstairs is the Mrs. Shufflewick bar with a big photo of her. So to see her actually in the flesh talking was a real thrill. It was amazing.
So, yes, the drag queens are talking, aren't they? And they chat about ways that gay people in the outside world, so to speak, in unsafe spaces in bars and pubs, can communicate with each other. And they talk about the secret language Polari, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yeah. I think we've talked about Polari before, but it's worth just touching again. It was literally a coded language. It's part Romany, part Carney, carnival folk. It has a long history, but really comes into its own in the 1950s and 1960s when gay men are being persecuted by the law at higher rates than at any other time in history. I've got a few words actually, which I hadn't realised passed from Polari into common usage. So a bevy, a drink, that's from Polari. A bitch, calling someone a bitch in terms of a catty or complaining, is Polari. Camp comes from Polari as outrageous or effeminate. Right. Drag is a Polari term. Naff, this is so naff, is from Polari.
Wow.
And trade.
Trade.
As in a gay sex partner. Right. Often who doesn't consider himself to be gay. Oh, nice bit of trade you got there, is from Polari. So lally is from Polari. I often say, me lallies are aching, your legs. So there we go. You don't even realise we are using Polari to this day. But
we've got a lot to thank them for.
Yeah.
So then we kind of go into a discussion on what it means to be gay and the representations of queerness in the 1980s. And Alison Hennigan is from the Gay News, and she's interviewed And she talks a lot about gender expectations and how gay men don't fit into normal gender expectations. Straight men are masculine, straight females are feminine, and gay men and lesbians don't necessarily fit into that category, and they kind of meet in the middle, don't they? And become, and gay men in particular become feminine men.
Yes.
So that's what they're saying about how it stood over the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I found really fascinating about this documentary, because we talked about in the cruising episode how historians look at what happens to gay history about this time, and it's called the butch turn, and is a reaction against perceptions that all gay men are camp and feminine. And to actually see this show talking about this without knowing that they're talking about it, oh my God, it pushed all my buttons. Yeah. Because one of the drag queens is asked, why do gay men like drag? And he replies along the lines of, well, gay people always like dressing up. And they would like to be a woman wearing glamorous gowns and glamorous wigs. So for him, in his world, being gay is all about being feminine. But as Alison Hennigan says, what gay people are now doing is starting to realise there are other forms of expression of homosexuality and lesbianism. You don't have to be feminine to be gay man. You don't have to be butch to be a lesbian woman. When you are still a subculture which is persecuted, and remember at this time it was still illegal under 21s to have gay sex, then it becomes really important for those subcultures to build kind of groups within them that you can identify and feel part of and feel belong to. It's really kind of common. And conversely, when a subculture kind of breaks out of that, it's then possible to express different various forms and permutations of gender, sexuality, race or whatever. So
then the magazine show goes on with that item to explore various subcultures that lend itself to this kind of, newfound masculinity, or gay men wanting to represent themselves in a masculine way as opposed to a feminine way of the drag act circuit, etc. So we visit, first of all, the leather subculture, don't we? It seems odd to call it a subculture now, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think it's still a culture within a culture, isn't it? So by definition, it's a subculture.
I think it's the word sub.
Yeah.
Obviously, sub has connotations in the gay world.
Yeah.
Subculture, to me, gives me the impression of it's something lesser rather than just categorising it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, we go into this leather subculture, don't we? And we meet Brian Derbyshire, who is a leather enthusiast.
Yes.
Doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he talks about how, using leather it's a fantasy. It's the fantasy of being hyper-masculine. He talks about his teenage years when he was from Liverpool. He used to go to Manchester, and the culture there always seemed to be the kind of feminine culture. You get dressed up in a fur coat, maybe put some false eyelashes on, kind of like a semi-drag kind of thing. And he felt as though he got sick of that. He felt as though that was the only representation of gay men, which he didn't like.
He was embarrassed by it.
He says he's embarrassed by it. He said it was quite dangerous to go out like that as well. And he said he's rejecting camp for being performative and boring. So he's made a choice to embrace this leather subculture.
Yes, that is ultimate masculinity. Yeah. And he talks about how his outfits are like police trousers, police cap and stuff, genuine, authentic from America.
Yeah.
And it's the butch turn. So you get this turn away from the feminine towards the hyper masculine. And it starts to affect porn. It starts to affect the images that you see of the gay male within gay publications and
Tom
stuff.
Of Finland
and
kind
Tom
of
Finland,
approach.
Google if you don't know what it is, not in front of the kids. Yeah, I mean, he's right there in the front of it. And it says that this is a rapidly growing subculture. And certainly when I came on the scene in 1991, 92, the leather groups were still there. The clones we're going to see in a bit are still there. So these subcultures, again, because the wider gay culture is still under duress, are still there until God, probably still there, but now joined by a whole range of other expressions, aren't they? I remember going to Pride in Surrey a couple of years back. I think I might have said this before. I was blown away by the different expressions of sexuality, gender that especially the younger people have. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing that people are able to break out of these kind of constricted, very rigid codes and ways of dressing and looking and stuff,
let's talk about the clones. Mm-hmm. Okay, so again, Alison talks about the clones, which she seems to have a certain amount of contempt for.
Yes, she does. I think she's quite dryly funny about them, actually, because what she says is true.
So just tell us, I never really knew what a clone was.
Right.
When I was coming out and I was trying to figure out where I fit in this whole firmament, this whole spectrum of representations of what it means to be gay. I'd heard the word clone, but I didn't really know what it meant. So what does clone mean to you?
A clone is a look, very specific, again, another representation of macho that's a kind of midpoint between ordinary bloke and leather queen or king, you know. We're talking a moustache, we're talking like a lumberjack shirt, jeans, boots. Muscles, very recognisably male presentation.
Right. And I suppose they're called clones because
they all look the same. Yeah. And what tends to happen, used to happen within clone culture was they'd only all fuck each other as well. There'd be very little going outside of that group. Yeah. And again, another very recognisable group still when we came on the gay scene. Yeah.
You see, this is what I just want to take a little side swerve about coming out. Because for me, and I don't want to presume it's for you, but a lot of people out there, when you're first coming out, you are bombarded with these representation, these photographs, you know, magazines of various clubs where people are, you know, it's either kind of like a club for clones or leather clubs or
drag bars
and stuff. When you're coming out, especially as me, kind of like a little 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid, but bombarded with these images and then turning the mirror back on myself and looking at where I fit into that firmament, I didn't personally feel as though I fit into any of those categories.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about now, you talk about Pride these days where you see a whole range of subcultures, for want of a better word, which, you know, if I was 15 or 16 now, I'd look around and think, that's my tribe.
Yes.
This is my tribe.
Yeah.
But in the early 90s, when we were both kind of dipping our toes in, there was only these kind of like maybe 3 or 4 different subcultures. And if you didn't fit into that, it could really kind of fuck with your mind, couldn't it?
Absolutely. And if you didn't feel that you were adhering to the standards of that, you know, it was, I suppose it's like any kind of pressure to be thin, the pressure to be this, the pressure to that. It's a different pressure that was just localised in the gay scene for us. Yeah, but absolutely.
Yeah. So, and, you know, you found yourself wanting to go to the gym to get muscles. If your body's not framed that way, it's never going to happen. And you're just, it kind of feeds into this kind of internalized homophobia that every kind of young gay man, when they're coming out, you know, and, you know, you carry that residual homophobia with you, don't you?
Absolutely.
You're not good enough.
Yes.
You don't fit into one of these categories.
Yeah.
You know, it can
and
really...
it can feel kind of betraying because you think that the gay scene is going to be this accepting, welcoming, inviting. And when you discover it isn't, unless you happen to be one of these, it can feel like it's quite isolating, isn't it? Yeah.
I just wanted to touch upon that because towards the end of this, the question, you know, why are these attitudes changing towards this more masculine type of gay man, and is it a good thing? And then we kind of get these like vox pops, these little snippets from various people in the various subcultures, and this was the first time we kind of saw individuals from these various tribes, so to speak, criticising the other ones, which I felt, okay, here we go. So now, rather than it being solidarity, we're all under this same umbrella, let's all move forward together, there seemed to be this emergence of, oh no, it's starting to splinter.
But then I think it was splintered already, and splintering, it's always going to be that divide. Did you spot Marilyn, brief a pop star in the early mid-80s, friend of Boy George? I think one of the clones says, we all want to be butch. The narration just says that this turn towards the butch and the masculine is a quote, fundamental change in the way gay men see themselves, and therefore, by extension, the rest of the population will change the way they see them. So it's really very much about changing perceptions, isn't it? And
it feels as though, you know, those cultures that are attaining, you know, a more masculine image
are acceptable.
As though a bit more digestible.
Yes, exactly. Digestible is a good word. Less threatening, but actually, ironically, more threatening, because nothing threatens the heterosexual male and patriarchy more than a gay male who passes off as a straight male very successfully, like the enemy within. We're clearly not there.
No.
We wouldn't be the sleeper agents.
But I think perhaps, and I'd like your take on this, one of the final words is left to George Melly again. We go back to him, don't we? What does George say at this point?
I thought this was a really beautiful point he made. Is that I said, although it's great that we've got this gay scene, for him, the ideal would be to not there be a necessity for a scene, that it was such part of everyday life that a gay club didn't need to exist. Now, I think that's a beautiful idea, but also at the same time, I do think if you don't have a space that feels safe, mind you, George is talking about some impossible utopia when there's no need to feel unsafe about anything.
In 1980 as well.
Yes, which is a lovely utopia idea, but in reality of things, I think these spaces are still needed. And
I think what he was kind of alluding to was, don't put yourself in this clamshell and then close the clamshell.
Yes, don't ghettoise yourself.
Don't turn against the others.
Yes.
There's enough going on with the outside world othering queer people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important message to kind of end our discussion on, really.
Yes.
That, you know, it's fantastic that all these other tribes have emerged, for want of a better word. I don't know if tribe's the right word. And like you said, you visited that gay pride and there were a whole gamut, a whole spectrum of different people there just celebrating together their queerness.
Yeah. Before we finish, one thing that really struck me is that this being 1980, it's pre-AIDS and pre the AIDS crisis. And perhaps, ironically, the AIDS crisis is one of those things that does bring the community together and does break down a lot of those inter-subcultural elements, as we have to face a threat from not only a disease, but also government inaction and then repression of that disease. So, but it did give me a little bit of sweet emotion watching this, thinking, God, just in a year or two, these guys are going to start dying and no one knows why, and no one's going to do anything about it for ages.
No.
Bit of a sad ending, but I think an important one.
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely. And if we can learn one thing from that, it's that there are existential threats coming at us again.
Yes. Absolutely.
Looming large in the background, and you know, gay people, trans people are experiencing that firsthand at the moment. So if there's any time that we should all be pulling together, I think it's now. Yeah. So anyway, we'll leave you with that thought. Not trying to tell you what to do, but
I'm sure that our listeners are lovely, lovely people who will fight the fight as well.
Yeah. And I think it's just important to remember that there's people on both extremes of an argument who are the loudest and most vocal. But
exactly.
The grand majority of people who are in the middle of that are the ones that
just have a nice life and just get on with it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we all want at the end of the day, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But that's a luxury.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we need to fight for that. So, happy Pride Month, everybody.
Happy Pride Month, everybody. Now, so before we go, what did you think of that? How many marks out of 10 would you give it?
I think I would just give it 10 out of 10, a solid 10 out of 10, because I just felt it was such a little snapshot into 1980, into the heroes that have come before us.
Yes.
Unafraid, unashamed to say, here we are, get used to us.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to give it, I think, 10 leather chaps out of 10 as well.
Yeah.
If I could give it more, I would. As a social historian, it was one of the most interesting things I think I've watched, along with Till Death Us Do Part.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. We've got a link to it in our show notes, everyone. Yes. So please, it's 24 minutes and it's well worth it.
Yeah.
Well, that was Gay Life. That kickstarted our Pride Month curation. So we've got more films and TV programmes to dissect in the coming weeks. So next week, Lee, what are we going to be talking about?
Next week, we're going across the pond to America for another seminal piece of work. We're going to watch Paris is Burning, which is a 1990 American documentary film, which was filmed in the mid to late 1980s and chronicles the ball culture of New York, taking in the African-American, Latino, gay and transgender communities. So I've never seen it.
I've seen it once a few years ago. Right. It's fantastic, but I'll be interested to hear your take on it.
Yes, yeah. So until then, gazers, please like, subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Yes. Please send us comments, emails, like our socials. We love hearing from you. We love you.
Oh, we love you. And happy Pride, everyone.
Happy Pride, everyone.